Hi everyone, I'm Lily. In this video, I'll be presenting an analytical study of Beethoven's Piano Sonata Opus 81A, the second movement titled Absence. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show how Beethoven constructs the feeling of absence, not by relying on extra musical program or biography, but through harmony, cadential behavior, and formal processing. These purely musical decisions create an expressive world that sounds emotionally distant, suspended, and unresolved. Here is my thesis statement. In this project, I use sonata theory and elements narrative archetypes to demonstrate how Beethoven employs diminished seventh chords, dominant prolongation, and cadential manipulation to portray the emotional conditions of absence, suggesting longing, distance, and an unresolved attempt to restore order. Everything in my analysis ties back to this thesis. My analysis uses two main methodologies from our class. First, sonata theory, especially Hippokowski and Darcy's ideas about cadential expectations, structural closure, and what they called prolongational space. I focus on how Beethoven weakens or defers closures and how this affects the expressive trajectory of the movement. Second, elements narrative archetypes. I treat musical events as narrative actions. The four basic archetypes are tragedy, when order fails, comedy, when order is restored or new order, romance, victory of order, meaning a longing or striving toward restoration, and irony, defeat of order, where structural conflict becomes the main expressive force. I'm not applying one archetype to the entire movement. Instead, I apply them locally to help articulate how different musical gestures create expressive meaning. Next, why absence? One reason I chose this movement is that in the classical period, sonatas rarely carry clear titles, but Beethoven labels this movement absence, which invites the question, how does the music itself create the sense of the absence? Rather than relying on programmatic explanations, I look for musical techniques that convey harmonic instability, suspended or frozen time, and deferred formal closure. My analysis resolved around three analytical facts, each of which aligns with a specific narrative archetype. Form. This is a four-part form and a coda or transition, A-B, A', B' coda. You can ask A as like a primary theme, B as a secondary theme. There is no PAC in this movement. Everywhere is all IAC. There are 4 IAC. You will see the music in bar 8, bar 20, bar 24, and bar 35. There is a sections from measures 1 to 8. A section is called constructed continuous period. First, fact 1, diminished seventh chords. My first analytical fact is Beethoven's striking use of diminished seventh chords as a sonority of instability. These chords appear far more frequently than we expect in a classical andante espressivo. In the opening bars, we already hear multiple diminished sevenths of 5 go to 5 gestures, not just as decorative arpeggiators, but functioning as structural support. In the several passages, we see diminished sevenths of 5 substituting for what could have been tonic prolongation. In other words, instead of grounding the listener, Beethoven replaces stability with instability. In a narrative interpretation, using elements framework, this creates a mixture of tragedy because order repeatedly fails to reassert itself, and ironic because the calm melodies construct with the restless harmony. So, in this movement, the diminished seventh becomes the harmonic symbol of the emotional agitation, a kind of the unsettled inner state that mirrors the idea of separation or absence. Secondly, dominant prolongation. The second analytical fact is Beethoven's use of the extended dominant prolongation, which produces a very strong expressive effect. Taking transition for example, from bars 8 to 14, the functions of transition is energy gain, so we will see bar 8 there is a crescendo, the harmonic sits on a dominant function sonority. We will see bar 11, 5 9 of 5, 5 6, 5 4 3 of 5, 5 5 6 of 5, and have a prolongation of dominant prolong. So interrupted spans, we will see these prolongations of dominant 5 6 of 5. Actually, we can see it as a field and then connects to secondary thing. Several cadential structures seems to begin, but then gets extended or deflected. So resolution never arrives when expected. Sonata theory interpretations, Polkowski and Dersit would call this a form of suspending formal time. This music delays structural progress, creating an expressive feeling that time is stretching or even standing still. Narrative interpretations. This prolonged dominant expresses elements of romance archetype, a sense of yearning or searching for something that is not present yet. It fits remarkably well with the idea of absence because the movement feels like it is stuck, waiting for a resolution that never fully arrives. Fact 3. Manipulating cadences. The third analytical fact is Beethoven's manipulations and weakening of cadences throughout the movement. Take B sections for example, B sections from bars 15 to 20. The cadential functions arrives at IAC in measures 20. Avoiding tonic and boost the tensions to arrive at resolutions. So we see several evicted cadences, for example, around bars 8, 20, 24, and 35, as I mentioned before. Instead of strong PACs, Beethoven often gives us weaker IACs or half-cadent-like gestures. Even the final cadential area feels soft and reluctant. In sonata theory, strong PACs represent structural achievement and restorations of order. But in this movement, Beethoven avoids giving us that kind of closure. This avoidance reinforces the idea that restoration is impossible or at least deferred. In narrative interpretation, we can see each cadential attempt as a comedy attempt to restore order. But because the closure fails each time, the movement ultimately moves toward tragedy. In terms of the expressive meaning, this suggests the impossibility of the return or emotional completion in the middle movement. In conclusion, I've shown how diminished seventh, prolonged dominant, and manipulating cadences all contribute to a narrative archetype of longing and emotional distance in Beethoven's Opus 81A second movement, Absence. By combining sonata theory and elements narrative framework, we can see this movement as a sonic portrayal of absence, an interpretation rooted not in biography, but in the musical text itself. Thank you for watching.